Reversible and irreversible sickle cells. Reversible sickle cells, RSC, can become irreversible sickle cells, ISC, after repeated episodes of sickling with damage to the cell membrane. The reversible sickle cells can revert to their original flexible discoid shape when reoxygenated, but repeated sickling can damage the cell membrane and make it impossible for the cells to return to their normal shape, becoming irreversible sickle cells. Oxygen therapy in the golden half-hour onset of a crisis restores reversible sickle cells and prevents them from progressing to a critical mass of irreversible sickle cells, wherein the sickle cell crisis becomes established and intractable. Developing a medication to prevent and stop a sickle cell crisis within the golden half hour has defeated the best medical scientists, the best and most resourced pharmaceutical companies, and the best researchers worldwide. The efficacy among Dr. Sota Omoigi's patients has been 90% for prevention and aborting a crisis in the golden half hour. And when you stop the crisis, you prevent the severe pain, emergency care, hospitalization, and multi-organ damage. Should you miss the opportunity to abort the crisis in the golden half hour, subsequent administration of oxygen in a hospital has no effect on the irreversible sickle cells. It just prevents any reversible sickle cells from progressing to irreversible cells. So it only helps to a limited extent in an established crisis. The irreversible sickle cells have to be removed by the body through the process of hemolysis, phagocytosis, or sequestration. It is also necessary to address other factors that may have initiated or are now aggravating the crisis, most common of which is infection, including malaria, pneumonia, etc. References for more information, consultation, or to arrange presentations, contact Dr. Sota Omoigui by email at medicinechief@aol.com.
So, Mr. Kolade, can you please tell me about yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I am Oluwaseun Kolade. I'm a sickle cell patient, 49 years old now. I I got to know about the oxygen concentrator 3 months ago when I had crisis and leg ulcers on my leg. So up till not until 3 months ago, I've never had anything about the oxygen treatment in this in sickle cell anemia. But after the last 3 months, which I've been using the oxygen concentrator and the medication, I've seen tremendous changes in my in my sickle cell life, which I would like to share with everyone. We can't hear you.
Please hold on. I think just hold on. I will soon be back. Welcome.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay,
Very good.
good evening, everybody. Let's see.
I think it's 8. We should just start. Just
Yes,
Give
it
people
is.
about 5 minutes, and there's a guests are waiting to join. Allow people in.
yes, because of
Oh,
security.
scammers. Okay, there's a people in the lobby. So
There's
let's.
nobody in the lobby. There's nobody.
There's nobody there now.
No, we both have access to the lobby. There's nobody there.
Okay. Okay. How many people are on now?
It's 8. Well, 8 including three of us. Read AI, just so 5.
Okay.
Just send but it's being recorded, so we can always post it.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube as well, so it's better we start on time, and then people can always watch the YouTube channel.
Yeah. Hold on. Just give them 5 minutes. Give them 5 minutes. All right.
All right.
All right. Um, I think we are good to go to start.
So we should give them 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Let's start 8:05.
All right.
But please, those who are coming in, we've given 5 minutes for everybody else to join. So please, we'll be starting at 8:05. Thank you. 8:05 now.
Okay, we can start. There are some guests in the lobby.
I've admitted all guests. There's no one there.
Okay. Okay.
Our guest speaker, who is the initiator of what we're going to be discussing today, and that is Dr. Sota Omoigui, and he's also, more importantly, my brother, my senior brother. I'd like to welcome him to this webinar. We're going to be discussing the very innovative and I would say cost-effective at this time treatment, or no, preventive care for sickle cell disease to prevent the crisis in the golden half hour. Years of research has gone into this, but it has taken Dr. Sota to bring it to light, and will give us a lot more details on this. On the chat, published the AI version of Dr. Sota's bio, and he will please help correct if AI is wrong in terms of this is what ChatGPT has produced as your bio with all the relevant references. But one thing that the AI has not done is to talk about his recent, innovative foray into use of oxygen in preventing sickle cell crisis. And again, that's the purpose of this webinar, and we hope that we will get more of that today. Now, as a foundation, we also have worked with Dr. Sota in setting up the Sickle Cell Advancements Group, which is what has brought a number of us together to really understand more of what's been going on. And we hope this webinar will be the first of several other things that we'll be doing to support this work, which will also include giving the raffle draw we have at the end of this webinar for people who are not in a position to afford the oxygen cylinder as a first step in getting oxygen therapy. And so there'll be a raffle draw at the end of the webinar. So to be eligible, you need to wait till the end of the webinar. And so we'll be giving out 3 oxygen cylinders, largely to people based in Nigeria. So this is really only for Nigeria eligible members of this webinar. But then there's also the oxygen concentrator, which will also be given out, but that'll be after 3 months of use of the cylinder with evidence. And so for those who may already purchase the cylinder, you're also eligible to have the oxygen concentrator, but you do need to show evidence of use, and how it has impacted you, and why you feel the oxygen concentrator is your next line of procurement. And that will be given free to, again, all those who have shown evidence, and there'll be another raffle draw for that. Hopefully at that point in time, we'll have another webinar where that oxygen concentrator will be given. So it's 3 months from now that will be, that raffle draw will be done. But today's raffle draw will basically be on the oxygen cylinder. So very quickly, so that we don't lose too much time, and again, welcome everyone to this to webinar. I'd like to invite Dr. Sota Omoigui, who will be sharing his slides to talk about this groundbreaking initiative. Thank you, Dr. Sota. You're on mute. I can unmute you, actually. You're on mute.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Karu. Thank you to all those joining here, including members of the Sickle Cell Advancement Group, a WhatsApp group that was set up by IFWECO to share this discovery. And essentially, what the whole purpose of this discovery is to create a paradigm shift from a reactive treatment approach, waiting to treat patients who are already in crisis, to an approach whereby we prevent 90% of the crisis right from the home. And this discovery is based on certain key publications that have been going on since 1930. And when I share my slides, you will be able to see those publications, and you see why they're going to make a revolutionary difference in the care. Diabetes was a death sentence for hundreds of years until insulin was discovered by Banting and Best in 1921. And that changed diabetes from being a fatal disease to being a manageable disease. So it's my hope that with this discovery, sickle cell can be changed from a death sentence, a fatal disease full of pain and suffering, to a manageable disease where crises and hospitalizations are few and far between. It will take everybody, physicians, patients, doctors, caregivers, families, to engage in this paradigm shift. So let me share my slides now, and then I'm going to go through the science and the solution in a minute. The recorded history of sickle cell disease goes back 7,300 years. I'm happy to say the sun has risen after 7,300 years of darkness. Now, what do the last 100 years of research show? That the early phase of sickling starts with reversible sickle cells. Okay, now, the abnormality in sickle cell anemia is that the hemoglobin, there's a mutation in the hemoglobin, whereby in a low oxygen environment, the cells change from a round discoid shape to a sickle cell shape, a sickle shape essentially. And with that sickle shape, it's prone to block the blood vessels. Now, amazingly, the early phase of a sickle cell crisis, those sickle shaped cells can be reversed with reoxygenation, and as long as it's done in a very timely manner. In our research, we found that within 30 minutes, which we call the golden half hour, within 30 minutes of the onset of a sickle cell crisis, if there's reoxygenation, these cells return to normal. However, when time progresses, those reversible sickle cells become irreversible. And oxygen no longer affects them. They retain a sickle shape even when oxygenated, and these irreversible sickle cells are what obstruct blood flow, causing severe pain and organ damage.
Saying that
And
I know. I mean,
let's just leave that so that
can
you're
you
not
try to calm Mark?
passing into the car.
For what?
can you mute your microphones, please? Okay, so what is the history of sickle cell disease? It was, of course, it's gone on for 7,300 years. It's been recorded in biblical times. In 1910, sickle cell disease was first described by Herrick when he noticed sickle-shaped cells in the blood of a dental student. It took another 17 years before Han and Gillespie suggested that hypoxia or a low oxygen environment caused the sickling of red blood cells. And this is where we've begun to realize the link between sickling and low oxygen. Then in 1930, the most transformational publication, Scriver and Wow in Canada reported that the number of sickle cells in the blood may be varied by the change of the partial oxygen pressure, and that this is a reversible reaction. Then it took another 53 years. In 1983, Frank and Chu stated that deoxygenated reversible sickle cells possess the ability to readopt their discoid shape upon reoxygenation. 1991, Robert Hebel stated that the damage to the cell membrane is reversible with reoxygenation. The phosphatidylcholine, those are all components of the cell membrane. So we're having all these multiple studies showing us that in the initial phase of a sickle cell crisis is reversible. And in 2015, MIT produced a video, which we will play later, showing reversible sickle cells and what happens with reoxygenation. And then in 1992, there was a clinical trial by Zipuski et al. Studying the effect of oxygen therapy on the number of irreversibly sickled and reversibly sickled cells in patients with sickle cell anemia. Inhalation of 50% oxygen in patients who were not in a crisis produced a significant fall in reversible sickle cells. Again, this is a validation of all what the previous researchers had written about, that when reversible sickle cells are oxygenated, they go back to normal. Then, inhalation of 50% oxygen in patients who were in crisis showed a significant reduction in reversible sickle cells, but not in irreversible sickle cells. And in the group of patients that received air, not oxygen, there was no change in either. So this is the key, and this is the problem with the paradigm that we've been operating over the last 100 years, waiting for patients to get to the hospital. By the time patients get to the hospital in a crisis, they are already in an irreversible sickle crisis. So giving them oxygen in the hospital does nothing to those cells. And those irreversible sickle cells obstructing the blood vessels can only be removed by the body destroying them. That's a process called hemolysis. So when the body destroys these cells, what happens? The hemoglobin drops. Patient is in a hospital, hemoglobin has dropped. Patient is in severe pain, there's organ damage, and what organs? The bones, the kidneys, the brain, like a stroke, and the penis, like called priapism. So multiple organs are damaged. Sometimes the kidney is so damaged, the patient has to go on dialysis. And then, most importantly, the lungs, producing acute chest syndrome. So a sequela of complications follows these irreversible sickle cells. So let me give a simple analogy to this. First of all, nature has provided an exit ramp for patients who are going into a crisis. The exit ramp is oxygen. So if they take oxygen within this golden half hour, they can exit that road to a crisis and complications. And look at this hemoglobin cells, these red blood cells, as vehicular. So when these vehicles are traveling, they are running short of oil, they park to the side of the road. If another car comes and gives them oil, they get back on the road. But if they keep on parking and getting back, which is called repeated cycling, then eventually the oil runs out completely. And what happens to a vehicle when the oil runs out completely? The engine knocks. So the car just blocks the road, doesn't go anywhere, and the tow truck has to come and take the car and go demolish it. And that's what happens. So the key thing is to prevent the patient from going into an irreversible sickle cell crisis. So, what was the clinical application of this basic science? Oxygen therapy in the golden half hour onset of a crisis restores reversible sickle cells and prevents them from progressing to a critical mass of irreversible sickle cells, wherein the sickle cell crisis becomes established and intractable. So if we can reverse this low oxygen environment by providing home inhalation oxygen within the first 30 minutes of a sickle cell crisis, we can stop the crisis. And when you stop the crisis, you prevent the severe pain, hospitalization, and multi-organ damage. There was a study in the US a few years ago that found that 96% of admissions in hospitals were due to a vaso-occlusive crisis, which is a sickle cell crisis. The patients seek medical care or arrive in the hospital, they are already experiencing irreversible sickling, which can no longer be reversed by oxygenation. So that's why doctors in the hospital are giving oxygen. The patients are not getting better. They have to be giving blood transfusions, giving antibiotics, giving everything. So they feel, oh yeah, oxygen. I've seen some articles where they say, oxygen doesn't do anything to these patients. And they're right. It doesn't do anything to these patients in the hospital. And that is the key point, is the timing. In the hospital, oxygen may prevent reversible sickle cells from becoming irreversible. But the irreversible sickle cells can no longer be taken back to normal. They have to be destroyed. So this time-dependent golden half-hour intervention for a sickle cell crisis is similar to that of the golden hour for stroke, when there's the best chance of restoring blood flow and saving brain tissue, or also that for myocardial infarction, which is like a heart attack, where timely intervention impacts a patient's survival and quality of life following a heart attack. So sickle cell is no different. We've just missed this for the last 100 years of modern medicine, 7,300 years of human history. So in our clinical practice, in the last 20 years, we have been able to reduce the incidence of sickle cell crisis as well as hospitalizations by 90%. Now imagine reducing sickle cell crisis by 90% to the global population of 7 to 20 million sickle cell patients in the world. In the United States alone, in 2016, the expenditure for sickle cell hospitalization was $811.4 million. Imagine reducing that by 90%. So the same thing in the global south, in Africa. If we can reduce this by 90%, we can save patients with their emotional distress, their pain and suffering, financial pain, family distress that affects the patient, the family, the community, the country, and the world. Again, I talked about sickle cell crisis and obstruction of blood flow, severe pain and suffering because the organs are not receiving oxygen. and damage to the organs, so resulting in acute chest syndrome, a vascular necrosis of the hips where the bone tissues die due to lack of blood supply. These patients have to have hip replacement due to the bone destruction. It results in stroke, brain damage, paralysis, kidney damage. So prevention is better than cure. The key to this disease is stopping the crisis at the first sign of the crisis. And that's a paradigm shift that needs to happen. Now, I'll go through a couple of situations where patients don't have the knowledge. Many doctors do not have the knowledge. When and where do majority of crises occur? They occur during sleep, where there's a low oxygen environment due to what is called nocturnal hypoventilation. That's just a big medical name for shallow breathing. Now, everybody has shallow breathing when they go to sleep. The oxygen saturation drops a little bit, but patients with sickle cell are much more sensitive to that drop. And that's why crises occur during sleep. And patients with sickle cell are afraid of going to sleep. There were articles in New York Times where some patients felt there was a demon coming for them at 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. Some were afraid to sleep. But it was simple. If they understood it, it was nocturnal hypoventilation. So the key is to avoid going to sleep without supplemental oxygen, especially when there are triggers. And I'll go into those triggers later. And we've had a couple of studies. In 2003, Hargrave et al. Concluded that low nighttime oxygen saturation was highly significantly associated with a higher rate of painful crisis in childhood. And just recently in 2024, Chang et al. In their own study found 43% of sickle cell patients that they studied had sufficient nocturnal hypoxemia to warrant oxygen therapy. They concluded that oxygen therapy may decrease inflammation and oxidative damage in hypoxic individuals. All of this discovery is based on basic science. Now, what aggravates a low oxygen environment? Patients do not have to sleep with oxygen. And again, if they don't sleep with oxygen, but they wake up in a crisis, they should merely turn on the oxygen cylinder or machine and apply oxygen within the golden half hour to abort the crisis. Now, what's the proof of concept of this oxygen? The disease burden of sickle cell anemia improved with the advent of medications like hydroxyurea and voxelotor, which is Oxbryta. These medications target the availability of oxygen at the molecular level to the sickle hemoglobin. Once again, we mention oxygen. Hydroxyurea increases the production of hemoglobin F in red blood cells and decreases sickling of hemoglobin. And how did hemoglobin F evolve? Evolved by nature to potentiate the transfer of oxygen from a mother's blood to the fetus, because the uterus is a hypoxic environment. And this goal was achieved by higher oxygen affinity of hemoglobin F compared with hemoglobin A. Voxelotor, Oxbryta, increases the affinity of the sickle hemoglobin for oxygen, thereby inhibiting sickling, reducing the amount of hemolysis, and increasing hemoglobin levels. Now, Oxbryta taken orally at 500 milligrams, 3 tablets once daily, can increase the hemoglobin level of a person with sickle cell anemia by 2 to 3 grams per liter. In Nigeria, you're more familiar with hematocrit, which is almost like raising the hematocrit by 6 to 9 points. Within a few days, and in some cases can return close to a normal level almost as fast as a blood transfusion and without possible complications. However, unfortunately, Pfizer had to temporarily withdraw Oxbryta because their studies after approval showed that Oxbryta had no difference in the incidence of sickle cell crisis, and there were few patients who had infection. It's my professional belief that the dose Pfizer put for Oxbryta was too high, because when you increase the hemoglobin too much for patients with sickle cell, the blood gets viscous and they have more crisis. Instead of 3 tablets once daily, the actual dose, I believe more appropriate dose should have been 3 tablets once a week. But anyway, hopefully they will analyze it and come to the same conclusion. Now let's go to the negative proof of concept. We talk about proof of concept of oxygen at a molecular level. The Novartis $665 million drug, Adagvir, was a human monoclonal antibody against P-selectin, which inhibits the addition of sickle erythrocytes, sickle red blood cells, to the walls of the blood vessels. It was approved by the FDA in November 2019 for reduction in frequency of sickle cell crisis. But in May 2023, it was revoked in Europe. It was also revoked by the UK January 10th, 2024, because they found out that Oxbryta did not make any difference in sickle cell crisis. In fact, people on Oxbryta had more crisis than patients in placebo. But I know a hematologist here in LA who said a couple of her patients ended up being admitting more admissions for crisis and dying after receiving Adagvir. So what was the issue with Adagvir? The issue with Adagvir was that it was targeting downstream, targeting the inflammatory cascade after sickling has already occurred. No drug can affect the sickle cell process without affecting oxygenation, because oxygenation is the first basic step in the sickling process. And if not, no hydroxyurea, no voxelotor, no Adagvir, the only thing that can stop the sickle cell process is bathing the red blood cells with oxygen, which is inhalational oxygen. So where else are there dangers to patients with sickle cell? Air travel and high altitudes. During commercial airline flights, patients with sickle cell disease are known to experience complications such as bone pain, splenic infarction, avascular necrosis of the hip, and in some cases, prolonged crisis resulting in death. And I've known a few patients who died after I traveled. And also there are patients who have even died in the aircraft without the plane landing. These complications have been linked to prolonged oxygen desaturation at high altitudes. Because in the aircraft is pressurized to 8,000 feet. Now, these planes are flying 20, 30, 40,000 feet. So they pressurize them to 8,000 feet because almost nobody can breathe oxygen at 30 to 40,000 feet. It's like you're on top of Mount Everest. So it's pressurized to 8,000 feet, but that pressurization is still too high for patients with sickle cell. And their oxygen saturations drop as low as 77% instead of the normal 95 to 100%. Now you can imagine somebody with a saturation of 77% for 6, 12, 18 hours of flight. That's a recipe for disaster. So now we've talked about prevention, which is the major paradigm change here, is to make sure that patients have oxygen at home and they can use it and stop a crisis within the golden half hour. Because severe pain produces chest splinting, inadequate respiration, further hypoxic sickling, and a prolonged crisis requiring hospitalization. It is my recommendation that the patient's physician or hospital should have a standing order for emergency medical services, ambulance team, or home health nurse to administer at home the first dose of an opioid or anti-inflammatory medication that the patient has previously tolerated, together with oxygen pulse oximetry and vital sign monitoring. Now, only potent injectable opioids should be used for patients in a crisis. These include morphine, pethidine, hydromorphone, fentanyl, ketamine, combined with an injectable non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, such as ketorolac or diclofenac. I know in Nigeria they have diclofenac injection. We use ketorolac more from here in the United States, that the patient has previously tolerated. I strongly do not state that hospitals should not use weak opioids like pentazocine or tramadol. They are ineffective, should never be used, and will only prolong a crisis. So now, in the 10% of cases where the oxygen fails to abort the crisis in the golden half hour, which could occur due to severe anemia or infection, including malaria, patients must immediately seek medical attention. Call an ambulance where available or proceed to the hospital. So our own case presentation, we had 7 patients with sickle cell anemia over the last 20 years. Their ages range from 25 to 67 years. They were all African American, 5 males to 2 females. Pain crises with excruciating pain scores of 10/10 occurred on average once every 2 months, with hospitalizations once every 3 to 6 months. All our patients had the majority of their crises occurring at night, waking them up from sleep, or occurring after they took plane flights or visited cities at high altitudes, such as Denver or Colorado or Las Vegas. If your city is above 2,000 feet in altitude, you should be sleeping with oxygen at night, because you have a greater tendency for a crisis if you have sickle cell in those cities. We prescribe our patients an oxygen concentrator for use at home. Now, you can as well use an oxygen cylinder if you can't afford a concentrator. And what's a concentrator is just a device that takes in air, removes nitrogen, and brings out oxygen. It uses what we call a molecular sieve, SIEVE, that absorbs nitrogen, so producing oxygen. Or you can use an oxygen cylinder, same thing. Our patients were advised to sleep with oxygen 1.5 to 2 liters per minute by nasal cannula, only when there are one or more triggers, such as increased anemia, stress, exertion, infection, sedation, alcohol, altitude greater than 2,000 feet, cold environment, feeling of being unwell. In the absence of triggers, they do not have to sleep with oxygen. So this paradigm shift, there's no requirement for any objective method, or that you have to check your oxygen saturation, your hemoglobin has to drop. No. The patient just feels unwell for any reason, they should just use their oxygen. And once they feel better, could be 1 hour, 2, 3, 4, sleep through the night, they can take it off. Oxygen by nasal cannula is only 28% oxygen. The oxygen you breathe normally is 21% oxygen. There is no toxicity with oxygen by nasal cannula. None at all. Studies have been done where children were given oxygen for 5 years and there was no toxic effect. So, in conclusion, all our patients were able to abort the crisis by administering oxygen at the first sign of the crisis. And then they didn't have to go to the hospital. They didn't have to have any complication. So the only exceptions were when the crisis occurred outside the home, and they missed the golden half hour or was induced by infection or cold temperature. What's the cost of a sickle cell crisis, apart from the tremendous cost to the patient and their family? In a 2021 study by Holford et al. Showed $1.5 billion in lost wages and productivity each year in the USA. $650,000 lost over the average working life of a person with sickle cell disease. In a 2019 study by Finger et al., in 2016, aggregate costs for inpatient stays for sickle cell disease totaled $811.4 million, with an average length of stay of 5 days. And what was essentially the consequence of all these hospitalizations? 2013 study by Landskron et al. Showed average life expectancy in 2005 for patients with sickle cell disease was 42 years for females and 38 years for males. U.S. Agency for Healthcare Research. In 2016, there were 134,000 sickle cell disease-related inpatient hospital stays. Meanwhile, there are only 100,000 sickle cell patients in the U.S. So almost as if more than the number of patients with the number of hospital stays. And over 3/4 of these stays involved a pain crisis. Half of these sickle cell stays were for patients 18 to 34 years, and 90% were for Black patients. The sickle cell is a disease of Black patients, which are in Africa, the Caribbean, South and Central America, and the United States. And nearly all of these hospital stays with the principal diagnosis of sickle cell disease involved a pain crisis, 96%. If you stop a pain crisis, you stop the hospital stays. Now, what do we have now as a cure? There are several curative options. The essence of these cures is to reduce sickle hemoglobin and provide increased oxygen capacity of the replacement hemoglobin. So we have the gene therapies. 2 therapies, Lyfgenia and Casgevy, have recently been approved. What do they cost? They cost $2.2 million for Casgevy and $3.1 million for Lyfgenia, for a course of treatment that can take up to a year. These therapies require several other procedures, including chemo prior to the treatment, which involves removing blood cells from the patient and modifying the DNA before introducing them in the body. This the high cost and availability will limit their global application, even in high-income countries like the United States. And capacity is limited. Bluebird Bio, the company that makes Lyfgenia, estimates that it can only treat 85 to 105 patients per year. So let's just say it's 100 patients per year, and there are 100,000 patients in the United States. It means it will take 1,000 years to treat all of those patients. So this process is complex, it's time-consuming, and medical centers can only handle a limited number of patients because each patient needs intensive care. And one thing with those gene therapies, they do not reverse any existing damage. So if there's already organ damage, damage to the lungs, damage to the kidneys, damage to the brain, stroke, any of those, avascular necrosis, none of those are coming back. But there was a patient who had a bone marrow transplantation several years ago, but she had had so many sickle cell crises before the bone marrow transplantation that her lungs were damaged. And even after the bone marrow transplantation, she was still dependent on oxygen because the lungs were already damaged. The transplantation, the gene therapy doesn't reverse any damage, and that's why oxygen is imperative to begin to use oxygen to prevent this crisis and prevent this organ damage. And for the global south, what's the cost of oxygen therapy? It's cheaper than any drug for any chronic disease. An oxygen cylinder one-time cost is about 150,000 naira, $85. Oxygen refills are 30,000 naira every 3 to 4 months. Some are even cheaper than this, or $1 per week. A concentrator, the cheapest ones are about 530,000, about $300 to $400 for low-cost Chinese models that should last 3 to 4 years, or $1.50 per week. Oxygen is the cheapest, most affordable treatment compared to any medication for a chronic illness. Now, when we talk of oxygen concentrators, it's very important to avoid concentrators that really do not meet the requirements. There are a lot of low-cost Chinese oxygen concentrators that should be avoided. You must look for a concentrator that has continuous flow. Pulse dose is not effective. You must be able to provide at least 2 liters per minute, and the purity, meaning after the absorption of nitrogen, should be at least 90% plus or minus 3%. And for those in Nigeria, due to the erratic power supply, it should have a rechargeable battery. So these are pictures of oxygen cylinders that can be used, purchased, and then refilled. This is a picture of a home oxygen concentrator. Some concentrators are approved for aircraft. This one here is the Sickle Eclipse 5, but they are very expensive. They cost like $3,000 to $5,000 with all the batteries included. So it's very important talking about this aircraft that airlines should provide compressed medical oxygen and not require patients to take these FAA certified concentrators on flight. They are extremely expensive, whereas the cost of compressed medical oxygen for airlines is no more than $20. European airlines do provide compressed medical oxygen, but airlines from the United States have used to provide compressed medical oxygen many years ago, but stopped providing it and requiring patients to bring on concentrators. So I do call on governments throughout the world, especially the Nigerian government, because Nigeria has like the highest concentration of sickle cell in Africa, to require and mandate that airlines from the United States provide compressed medical oxygen to their passengers when they fly in or out of Nigeria. And the rest of African countries should implement that until the United States Department of Transportation decides to implement it. But we must compel these airlines not to assault and kill our Nigerian patients and passengers. In conclusion, as I said before, long-term studies have shown that with long-term use of oxygen, there are no deleterious effects. In 2021, Ligoro et al. Concluded that long-term oxygen therapy administered from 2014 to 2019, 5 years, was a safe and feasible treatment option for children age range 6 to 15 with sickle cell disease and chronic hypoxemia. Again, I want to say, oxygen by nasal cannula is 28%. It's different from 50 to 100% oxygen administered to newborns that have toxic effects. So this is a very safe treatment and prevention to prevent a crisis. Intervention with home inhalation oxygen that can prevent and in the golden half hour about a sickle cell crisis is immediately available and accessible to the estimated global population of 7.74 to 20 million patients with sickle cell disease, and a sickle cell disease mortality burden at 376,000 in the year 2021. 376,000 dead from sickle cell, which we can stop with oxygen administered at home in the golden half hour. In conclusion, as Hippocrates stated in 400 BC, let food be your medicine. I, Soto Amoegui, declared in 2024 AD that the guiding principles in the management of sickle cell disease shall be: let oxygen be your medicine. So I'm going to show some of the patient testimonies that we've had since we've been providing, sharing this discovery. Here you can see is somebody who read one of my articles. Her brother had sickle cell disease, so she went and purchased an oxygen concentrator. And this is her chat with me. Said, hi, Dr. Soda, this is the one. She put a link there. Allows the flow rates per your clinical guidelines and at an affordable cost. I said, thank you. How is your brother doing? You're welcome. He's doing great. Thanks to you. No crisis since the oxygen prevented 2 this year. And actually, what she had told me over the phone was that the first time the brother used this oxygen concentrator, he was beginning to have a crisis. He put on the oxygen concentrator, put on the oxygen, and went to sleep with the oxygen. When he woke up, the crisis was gone. He started to cry. His mother started to cry, and his sister started to cry. Because normally, when he had a crisis, it was heading straight to the hospital for a 1 to 3 week hospitalization. So this is how profound the oxygen did. Now, this is another patient from the Sickle Cell Advancement Forum who went and purchased an oxygen cylinder thanks to another member who guided him to the place. And here he said, Doctor, may God continue to bless you in all you do. See how committed you are, as if we are paying you. I don't know how to thank you. I said, thank you. He said, thank you, sir. 3 days ago, the crisis surfaced as usual, and immediately we plug oxygen on him before 30 minutes. He get fine and better, and he wake up very strong. And these were the kind of case that normally take us to hospital like 1 week before. Doctor, I love you, sir, for taking away stress we've been going through all these years. This is because the crisis doesn't just affect the patients, it affects the family. And this was my reply to him. The solution to a problem 7,300 years old is here. Again, this was the same father. I was trying to get him to send a video clip. He said, good morning, doctor. I'm so grateful and honored by your invitation, sir. However, timing may be a factor while it may be a little bit difficult to join the meeting. I actually wanted him to join the meeting. Like as I told you before, I'm based in South Africa, while my family is based in Lagos, Nigeria. And I am a handy workman electrician. By the way, sir, yeah, I did discuss the invitation with my wife. She promised to do a video testimony of oxygen. However, the oxygen has been a lot of relief to my family. Yeah, my boy was born 2005, very handsome and intelligent. He's growing up, no sign of sickle cell disease until 2022, and he gained admission to study medicine in Benin University. After 6 months to 8 months of him in a foreign land, he started being sick day in, day out. When they take him to hospital, by the school, they would give him treatment and bills. At the time, I decided to ask him to return to Nigeria to get proper treatment of materials. And when he came back to the hospital, they discovered there was no blood. There was no blood on him, and they started running tests, and in the process discovered the sickle cell anemia disease. Sir, this is how our problem started. Every week we are in hospital. Stop going to school. Crisis every month or 2 weeks. From that 2022, the problem was out of this world. No hospital doesn't know my wife. And when this crisis started, it usually takes 1 week or more to relieve him. If you're around him, doctor, you will cry. I don't think there's any pain greater than the pain of sickle cell disease. Doctors in Nigeria, some don't care. This is why my wife, with few of these individual doctors, fight. However, 3 months ago, I saw your advert through a town guy who is based in America that discussed the issue of sickle cell patients. And I followed him and called the guy, and he said he was going to contact you. The guy's name is Tona. And he called me back and gave a link for me to follow. This was a link to the Sickle Cell Advancement Forum, and which I did, and I followed your teaching. Initially, I wasn't understanding because I have an issue of reading with understanding. I kept on asking questions that I was not following to the teaching, because I was thinking that there was a hospital, you were going to refer us and we'll pay a certain amount and he will get treated. Until a good lady that I'm still talking with in this group, the same sickle cell advancement group on WhatsApp, called me privately and explained the whole thing about oxygen and gave me the address where to purchase, which I purchased immediately, and the delivery was made after the payment. Now, whenever he has small pains and my wife plugged the oxygen, which has been our medicine since 3 months, he will fall asleep. By the time he wake up, he will get better immediately. Sir, we're really happy with you. Ever since then, no going to hospital. He's big, he's fat. You never agreed it was that person that was sick every week. Doctor will make time and do a proper video of this. He does everything people do. He drive and go out. He was telling me that he wanted to start online business. I'm going to make a proper video of this whole thing to encourage people about the oxygen and the work cell. The woman that chatted with me, her name is Yuga. I forgot to insert her name. And that was his testimony. So so this is the end of this. I'm going to play the video by the MIT. And please, you can share these video links in the chat, if Fueko. The video links to the videos we were playing earlier, all the videos that I sent you, but I'm going to play this on my screen now. So hold on. But this is the end of my presentation. After I play the videos, then we'll discuss specifically the issues raised on the webinar topics. Let's see.
There's no audio.
Oh, you're not hearing the audio.
No.
Okay, that's fine. It's not really. You can just read on the screen. It's just elevator music playing. Okay. That was, I'm going to stop sharing in a minute now. That video was done in, hold on. Stop the sharing. Okay, so I've stopped the sharing. Am I back to the regular screen now?
Yes.
Yes, you are, sir.
Thank you, and thank you. That other video was done by MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, showing the sickle cells and the effect of reoxygenation. But when they do that video, they did that video for drug companies to study their drugs, like hydroxyurea, without the clinical application that if you just give the patients oxygen, the sickle cells are going to revert back to normal. So these are all the basic science studies that have been done over the years that have shown the power of reoxygenation of sickle cell. So, okay, so now I'm going to, Joseph, I'm going to hand this back to you. You can go over the topic of this specific forum. And if people have any questions, they are free to ask them. I'm here available to answer the questions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suta. I really enjoyed this. It has been very insightful, and personally, I learned a whole lot. This is so amazing. The huge relief on the financial burden, emotional, and especially the physical burden of our sickle cell warriors. This is really amazing. I think we can all give Dr. Sota a virtual round of applause, if possible. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. At this point, if we have questions, please just raise up your hand. I can see one hand is already up, and I will just call based on the role of persons whose hands are up. So first of all, we have Niyi. Niyi, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question very briefly. Because of time, we'll just take about 5 questions, and then we'll share the link. The link to the WhatsApp group has already been shared, so please feel free to join. And then Dr. Sota has been very helpful in answering all our questions on the WhatsApp group. Niyi, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you very much, Joseph, and thanks a bunch, Dr. Sota. And for me personally, I don't think I have any question here because I think I've taken a lot of Dr. Sota's time in clearing all my doubts. A lot of my questions were personal and some were moved to the general group. I've asked a lot. What I want to say is that this is indeed a salvation. And I think Dr. Sota has fought a great battle in bringing this to us. So I think at this point, we should be discussing the mandate of taking this evangelism beyond this number of people that I'm seeing here. And let me be clear at this point that this is no longer Dr. Sota's responsibility, but the team members' responsibility. A lot of people are in what I would call this sickle cell bandage. And, they keep going back to the hospitals month on month. So my point is simple and directed to Joseph. I will assume you as the de facto team lead here. Let's strategize a means to spread this evangelism. We should be talking of thousands of membership in months to come and not just these hundreds or 20 people that I'm seeing here. So that is just my contribution. Thank you very much, Dr. Sota.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Ni, for that. This webinar today is one of the first steps towards achieving that goal, like you shared. I'm happy to see that we have like minds who really are dedicated to taking this to the world. Just like you rightly said, this is amazing news. This is great news, and everyone deserves to hear this. It has the potential of alleviating the sufferings of millions all around the globe, right? And the first step for you, I hope you're already a part of the WhatsApp group. Um, in coming days, we'll be sharing some more information on the WhatsApp group, and please be very free to volunteer as opportunities to be a part of this come up. All right. I have Anne. Your hand is up. Anne, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, hello, Dr. Sosa. Thank you so much for this. I've joined now. This is the second time I'm joining, and it's really been insightful. So I'm calling from the UK, and I guess I had a question. So you said we should use the oxygen within the first 30 minutes. I think that's the golden half hour. Once that's put on, then how long do we then use it for? I guess I have another question as well. You said if you live in or you visit a country like where with that the elevation is very high, we should sleep with oxygen. Is that for the duration of the night, or like a couple of hours, okay, half an hour, or yeah? So I just wanted to check those
Yeah,
two things.
thank you. Actually, you can utilize the oxygen for how long? How long? Until you feel better. There's no set amount of time. You can, most times you'll feel better within a couple of hours to 3 hours. So once you feel better, you're fine. You don't have to use it completely throughout the night. So it's something that you're just going to explore by yourself. There's no specific prescription on the number of hours. You'll use it. Once you start to feel better, then you can take it off. And I think we'll also play a video, the green video uh, before I go. I don't know if you can share your screen, or I can share my screen and play that green video. It shows
Which
you
group
a
video?
video. It's a video testimony of the patient who had a concentrator and was using it.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't,
okay.
yeah,
We share. Okay, you want to share it
yeah.
again?
Not just share it again. We'll play it for a few minutes. Just play it for 5 minutes so they can see the patient. But yeah, so and in the UK, it's just very
Just
variable.
let's handle it.
And
Yes,
if you
yes.
and if you're in a high altitude place, then yes, you sleep with oxygen. You could sleep with it through the night. You sleep with it for a few hours, but you will generally come to see how you feel. Okay, so let's just watch this video.
Everyone, I am Oluwaseun Kolade. I'm a sickle cell patient, 9 years old now. I I got to know about the oxygen concentrator 3 months ago when I had a crisis and leg ulcers on my leg. So up till not until 3 months ago, I've never had anything about the oxygen treatment in sickle cell anemia. But after the last 3 months, which I've been using the oxygen concentrator and the medication, I've seen tremendous changes in my in my sickle cell life, which I would like to share with everyone.
Please share.
So until 3 months ago, I visit hospital almost every month in the case of crisis infections and all that, and my sickle cell and my leg ulcers. After using the oxygen concentrator, I noticed the first 10 minutes of my anytime I want to have crisis and I put on the oxygen concentrator, the crisis just gradually disappear, and which I can sleep better since then. And I've not been visiting hospital regularly the way I used to. And I noticed also that my leg ulcers has been improving in healing. I Actually, within the first 2 weeks of using the oxygen concentrator, all the Lagos has dried up. Actually, it is really reduced, which I was very, very surprised. And I think the use of oxygen concentrator has really helped in the treatment of my sickle cell anemia.
So could you tell us about how you use the oxygen concentrator? Is it easy to use? Does it make noise?
Yes, the oxygen concentrator. Well, the first one I have is used with the electricity, which is not it cannot be carried about. So I normally use that anytime I want to sleep or anytime I'm in a relaxed mood in the house. So and it's not difficult to use. You just have to place the cannula above the head like this. Let me do a little bit of demonstration. Put the cannula and you plug this into the device, and that's it. And you are enjoying your oxygen. So it's very easy to use and it's not noisy at all. It's a device you can sleep with.
And can you tell us how long you have to use the oxygen concentrator?
Yeah, it doesn't really have a specific time of using the oxygen concentrator. But anytime I feel tired and probably the first few minutes of the crisis, I just put it on and gradually I sometimes sleep with it and I wake up in the middle of the night feeling healthy, then I just put it off.
So the symptoms of a sickle cell crisis are severe excruciating pain, a pain that has been classified as 10 times worse than labor pain. There's no other pain that approaches the pain of sickle cell because it's a multi-organ vessel occlusion. And this pain essentially incapacitates the patient and leads to hospitalization for sometimes weeks and leads to complications like acute chest syndrome that becomes life-threatening. So again, for sickle cell, you have severe excruciating pain, you have jaundice from destruction of the red blood cells, severe joint pains in the legs, in the backs that are really difficult to control with medications. Actually, oral medications don't control it. It has to be parenteral narcotics, parenteral anti-inflammatories, and time is of the essence because the longer the crisis lasts, the longer the cells become irreversibly sickled after 10 minutes, and the earlier time to intervention with pain medications and anti-inflammatory, the shorter the crisis. In fact, it's advocated that ambulances should have a standing order for pain medication and anti-inflammatories that the patient has previously tolerated in a prior hospitalization. So the ambulances can give the patient the injection of the medication before transporting them to the hospital where there's going to be any further delay. It's no different than patients with heart attack where the ambulances give morphine when they arrive at the patient's home. So using this oxygen prevents the severe pain, prevents the organ damage, prevents the hospitalizations, prevents all the complications, prevents death. And again, oxygen should be used when the patient is in a high altitude city like Las Vegas or Colorado. When the patient is traveling in the air, no patient with sickle cell anemia should travel in the air without oxygen because aircraft are pressurized to 8,000 square feet. And at 8,000 square feet, the oxygen saturation for patients with sickle cell is about 77%. So that patient is traveling with severe hypoxia for hours on the end. At the end of the flight, they end up with a sickle cell crisis, a vascular necrosis of the hips, and other severe complications. So the use of oxygen is going to change lives, 9 million lives. Thank you. Okay, you can stop there. All right, so that's fine. You can take the video off. So, okay, so Mr. Joseph, continue. Take any other questions you want.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Sota. Agatha Mary, your hand is up. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, Dr. Sota. Good evening, everyone. I want to say
Good
thank you.
evening.
My first question is, okay, I understood everything you said, but you mentioned something about not going on the concentrator without having used the cylinder. Am I getting it wrong? I don't know.
No, you're getting it wrong. All I said is that if you can't afford the concentrator, you can
Okay.
use an oxygen cylinder. So the key is oxygen, whether it's from a concentrator or it's from a cylinder.
Okay, so that takes me to my next question. Do you have in Nigeria, Agatha, I'm in Nigeria, if you have someone who can supply us the standardized one you recommend? Because I saw yesterday or a bit day before yesterday, somebody was told to return what he had because he did not meet. And asking on behalf of my son, he's about 12, and we are having an episode right now. So,
Okay, so you mean the standardized specifications for an oxygen concentrator?
or a supplier we could get from who could give us what we require.
Okay, so first of all, the specifications I recommend for a concentrator is that it must give you continuous flow, not pulse dose. It must have an oxygen purity of 90% plus or minus 3%. And so those are the two specific requirements, continuous flow of about 1.5 to 2 liters per minute. Now, in terms of where the availability of the cylinder or the concentrator depends on what city you are in Nigeria. What city are you in?
I'm in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State.
Okay, so we do have an AI guru on the platform. His name is Dr. Tunde Fakunle. So you just need to put a question on the Sickle Cell platform with your city, and he'll use AI to try and find out which medical supply store in Uyo can provide oxygen cylinders and refills, and also um, where you can order concentrators. Now, some of these concentrators you can order them online. Otherwise, you can simply just the medical supply stores can provide them for you. So, but put your question on the forum and it will be answered.
Okay. I was asking so we could get something that could be mobile because 12 years old, he's quite active.
Well, yeah, your oxygen cylinder, you can have big ones for home. You can have small ones that are mobile. You can put in your car and take wherever you go, or you can get a concentrator, which is mobile. So it all depends on your budget. But yes, you can get anything from a small cylinder to a small concentrator. And I'm sorry to hear that your son is going through a crisis now. I hope he can get the appropriate pain medications. Again, I repeat, not pentazocine or tramadol, the appropriate anti-inflammatory. Yeah, his blood hemoglobin needs to be checked, make sure it's not severely anemic and requires a blood transfusion. If it needs to be on antibiotics, if he's having any infiltrates in his chest. So those are all the basic things of management. But again, once you get your oxygen, you can prevent getting into this situation.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sota.
You're
We'll
welcome.
ask the other questions on the group. I appreciate.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sota. I don't see any other hands up. Does any other person have a question they want to ask? Any questions, please raise up your hand while we prepare for the
I've got a
next
testimony if I'm allowed to.
session.
I've
Okay,
got a
I have,
testimony.
okay, so let's just take that.
Okay. Doctor, thank you so much, sir, for your guidance and your support throughout my trip. I normally would have traveled, which I've done twice to LA without asking for oxygen. And on the second and third day, I normally have a crisis. But this time, it is different. I'm bubbling with so much energy and strength because I adhered to your instruction. I made sure I had oxygen throughout the flight to LA. On my way back on the 30th, I'm fighting for the same thing. Thank you so much, sir. I am really, really honored to know you. God bless you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Tunde Okeowo.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Tunde Okewo. I saw someone's hand up for KG. I think he or she had dropped off already. So I see Mrs. Okaru. Ms. Okaru, please.
Yes, no, just to note that we put some additional security controls on the WhatsApp group. So I have 3 requests. I believe it's from this meeting. And just to confirm, there's a Boala Sickle Cell Foundation. Are you on this call? Then there's Army Professionals.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Then there's Army Professionals. Are you on this call? And there's a number with 6101 ending.
That's me. My name is
Oh,
Chinyere.
okay, Chinyere. So thank you very much. So it's been approved. I haven't heard from the Army Professionals ending with 8400.
Yes, on the call. Thank you.
All right, so that's it. We're trying to prevent scammers and hackers to the groups, so we had to put additional controls. So your requests have all been approved. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Okaru.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see Mr. Sishana's hand up. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is just to thank Dr. Sota Mogui for this. I mean, and we wish him the best. I mean, I think if there's any support, that is something I think I listened all through. I think something we need in the country. I mean, at all levels. I mean, we really have to look for ways to scale this. I mean, thank you. I see you have a team you're working with. If there's need to scale that, I mean, we'll be available. These are the kind of things I want to do now. I mean, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I guess the Dagumo team is the one that is best positioned to scale this up. So Mr. Fueko Karu, Joseph Origo, and Mr. Asishana, yeah, you are all welcome to take this to a higher level.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asishana. Anne, lastly, Anne, move on.
Hi,
Anne,
me again.
yes.
Just a quick one. So I usually use oxygen whenever I travel on long haul flights, say like to Nigeria, which is 6 hours from the UK. But whenever I travel within Europe, I don't do that. So for example, if I travel to France, I'm planning a trip to France, it's 45 minutes. Are you saying that it would be better if I use a oxygen concentrator for that flight? I've noticed that actually whenever I travel less than an hour or 2 hours, I'm still quite tired anyway. So what you're saying is, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, my question is, on short haul flights, do I still use the concentrator as well?
Okay, well, you should request compressed medical oxygen from the airline, or they require you bring a concentrator, then you have no choice but to bring a concentrator. Next time you travel, take a pulse oximeter with you. Generally, within 10 minutes of a flight, the oxygen saturation of patients with sickle cell begins to drop. So you are advised to take oxygen and use oxygen even on your short flights. Okay, so that way you'd avoid any vascular damage from ischemia and from hypoxia. So take a pulse oximeter with you, but take your oxygen, okay?
Yeah, the issue with that, thank you very much. The issue with that is most airlines don't provide oxygen to short haul flights. Like for example, British Airways doesn't. I checked the other day. So that means, so you're recommending probably having a concentrator then on flight?
Yes, and airlines need to be educated when it comes to sickle cell patients. The issue of short haul and long haul should not be there. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
you have less damage with a 30-minute flight than you have with a 6-hour flight. But you shouldn't have any damage at all. So we also have to make a concerted effort to educate these airlines and So there's a lot of work to be done about this, you know. So you don't need to subject yourself to damage, but yeah, so if they don't provide it for now, yeah, then get an oxygen concentrator that you can use on the flight.
Yeah, okay. And that's fair, because even the hematologists over here in the UK, they're not really clued in on any of this. So they wouldn't provide a letter for, anyway, the airlines don't provide it, but they just only recommend oxygen for flights longer than 6 hours. But yeah, I'm letting them know about your work anyway. So thanks again.
Yes, the doctors also need to be educated. And if anybody ever needs a letter for a prescription for oxygen for flight, contact me through the forum, and you can do a telecall with my clinic, and I'll write a prescription for you.
Great, yeah. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Dr. Sota. Thank you, Anne, for your questions. Thank you, Dr. Sota, for your time, for your work, for your amazing work, and for taking out time, your patience, to answer all of our questions. God bless you so much. All right, because of time, we'll be moving on to the next stage of the webinar, which is the draw for 3 lucky persons who will be winning cylinders, oxygen cylinders. If you would like to be a part of this, this is the ground rules for that. It's going to be a very open process, so we are all going to follow through. We are all going to see how winners are going to be selected, but you have to have been a part of the webinar at least for at least say 50% and up, so if you would like to be a part of the draw, just put down your name. Just put down your name in the chat section, and we'll just pick it up from there while I go ahead and share my screen so we can see how this is going to be done. All right, so we are just going to spin. I'm going to fill in your names here once I begin to get names. Okay, but please, you have to be in the meeting. So I see sorry, Peters. All right, I see Osaritin Peters. Wow, this is the flow. K Concepts, I see Tagbo Chidubem Hasinyo Chukwu. I hope that's one name. I know you have also been in the meeting from the attendance. I'm just going to do this. Then Okumobo Edwin, Chire Doho. Please just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. I can.
Okay, I see Sarah Duncan, see Fatima, see Sherifat. Yes, Anne, who has contributed a lot. Thank you, Anne. Oh yeah, so you have to be in Nigeria. You have to be in Nigeria. Someone is asking if in the US can we designate someone in Nigeria to receive the cylinder. Please, you have to be located in Nigeria. So, and I think that takes you out. Okay. Josephine. Josephine, are you on the call? Hello,
Yes, I
Josephine,
am.
can you?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Where are you located?
Nigeria. I'm in
Where,
Nigeria.
where, where in Nigeria?
Abuja.
Abuja. Okay. Thank you so much. Sarah said you're in the US. Okay, so I'm taking that out as well. All right, so I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 names. Oh, Fatima is also not in Nigeria, but wanted to nominate a recipient. Okay, Fatima, sorry about that, but that also takes you out. Brings us down to 5 names. Okay, thank you very much. At this point, I think
So I think
Dr.
Peter is
Sut.
also. Also, I think Peter is also in the UK. But
Oh, what's that?
can I ask for those who are talking about designating a recipient, because this is not going to be the only time we are doing this session. It's important that the recipients listen to the webinar, understand it, and value it, and and family members of that recipient, the recipient is not an adult, are also listening. So that's part of the reason. This is not just to be given a cylinder, it's to be able to know how to use it, to be able to value it, and to be able to use it. So we advise when next we do a webinar that you encourage people to join the webinar so that they are part of it and they learn from it as well. There's going to be the next draw will be around, not now, at the next time we do a webinar, will be around the concentrator. Now that's that's something that as long as they're part of the webinar and you show the evidence of it, then you do qualify. But again, we just our donor right now, we'll try and get other donors, but our donor right now is based in Nigeria, is to have it based in Nigeria. But we'll widen the donor scope as well and widen all this so that as many people can benefit from this as possible. Thank you.
And
Thank you very
meanwhile,
much.
while this is going on, I want to advise everybody about oxygen and oxygen concentrators used at home. Avoid smoking or use of any electrical objects such as electric blankets, hair dryers, open flames, or flammable materials near an oxygen concentrator or oxygen cylinder. So be safe with oxygen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sota. Thank you, Ms. Zakaru, for helping to provide clarity on that as well. All right, Dr. Sota, with your go ahead, can we take the first spin so we can find out the first winner? All right.
Sherifat is not in Nigeria, so if she wins, she doesn't qualify. Thank you.
Okay. So we have Josephine.
Wow. Thank you so much. Wow. Wow. Thank you so much.
Josephine, so please share your email, your phone number, and your location for follow-up.
Wow.
All right.
Eh.
Oh, Sherifat is not in Nigeria. Okay. So I think if Sherifat is not in Nigeria, that takes us down to 2 persons automatically already.
Yeah, but this is a raffle draw. So what we'll do is we'll just give one more person and then open this up for. Okay, we have somebody, Sarah, who will benefit great, a nephew. He lost his sister 4 years ago. Well, let Dr. Sota be the deciding point. Do we add Sarah?
Yes, you can add. You can add Sarah. There's another gentleman that was here, Edwin. I don't know, Okumobo. Is he still here?
Yes.
I'm here, sir.
You didn't add his name. He's based in Nigeria.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Horrible. Edwin.
So if we're adding Sarah, are there any others who want to assign to somebody in Nigeria that can defend and justify it in a manner that they will be part of that process of educating the person, particularly if the person is not an adult? Can you just justify on the chats? Please justify on the chat and we'll add your names. So Fatima, can you justify? Tia, can you justify, please? 41-year-old female should actually be here. Is she sick right now and unable to be here at the webinar?
I can't tell much.
Okay. No network. Okay. All right. So let's add Tia. Fatima, any justification?
Okay, sorry, because I can't type so quickly, I was hoping I could speak. Is it okay?
Yes, please.
Yeah, because actually a cousin of mine sent me this invite from Nigeria. And I was expecting that another cousin who just had a double hip replacement to be on the call as well. I'm not sure why not, because I was driving all evening. I just rushed home to join the webinar. My older sister's got sickle cell. She's here in the UK. But I'm actually thinking of that cousin in Nigeria who just had a double hip replacement.
Okay,
Like I said, somebody in Nigeria shared this with me.
Okay, who is speaking? Is that Tia or Fatima?
No, this is Fatima speaking.
Okay, so let's add Fatima. Have we gotten everybody now that may not be in Nigeria, but have somebody that they can justify in Nigeria?
From the chat, I think we have.
Everybody now. Okay.
Yes, from the chat.
All right. So let's let the draw move. Tunde, is it the same just that one? Tunde, your justification?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay,
awesome.
all right. Thank you. That's great.
Awesome.
So can you add Fashino as well? Tommy Fashino.
Right?
Okay. Again, it's
All
just
right.
3 speakers. So let's see who is the remaining lucky 2. Who's next?
All right. So taking the next screen. Oh, wow. So Fatima. Oh, Tommy Fashina. Amazing. All right. So Tommy Fashina, please send us your details, the last entry. Okay, so please send us your details, your phone number, your location, your email address, so that we can facilitate delivery. And now for the last screen, before I do that, let me take out Tommy Fashina. Right. Oh, we have Chinyere Edoho. All right, Chinyere, are you still on the call?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. So please also share your location, your phone number, and your email address so we can facilitate delivery.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so at this point, I'll be inviting Mrs. Okaru to take closing remarks and to give us any other information in regards to next steps and just available resources already, especially those shared by Dr. Sota, and how we can take full advantage of the WhatsApp group as we join. Over to you, Mrs. Okaro.
All right, so thank you very much. And first of all, a big thank you to Dr. Sota Moigui for not just this webinar, for his time, his passion, and all that he's done, his research in getting us to this point. The setting up of the group actually came out of just listening to what he had to say, thinking about how do I share this to as many of my contacts as possible. But I realized that these days people get so many posts, and the chances that they were going to read it will be slim. And this had to be targeted at people who really needed it and who had, a stake in ensuring that, they took advantage of this research. And so the idea was, with his consent, to set up the group and then share the group contacts to those who were interested. And to be quite honest, I mean, we're amazed at the feedback we've gotten so far. And thank you so much for the testimonies at this webinar. And it continues to grow. I think we have over 400 plus members of the group. We started just with 2 of us, then 3, then 4, then 30. Some may have left and some have come back. And just as been said, this is actually to target all sickle cell disease warriors, not just in Nigeria, all over the world. I mean, Nigerians, for example, are 1 out of 5, Africans, and they're all over the world, So even if we're just following Nigerians around the world, it's worldwide. But it's not really just Nigerians. It's anybody, and just as Dr. Sota has said, this is a condition that affects people of, Black pigmentations. And perhaps if this was something that affected others, of a different color, it would have been a lot more, out there in the public. But this is us, and I think it's an opportunity for us to really think through how to scale this, just has been said. But scaling actually starts with these steps. So far, there's been a webinar, I think 2 webinars, another one is being planned soon next year, all coming out of the group. We also have a TV program that was recorded yesterday, and I think that was also posted on the group. So I think we've started. Now, for us at Dagomo, we noticed that there was certain people couldn't afford the cylinders. Certain people could not actually make the initial payment to the cylinders, and they had to wait. And we felt that, well, one of the things we could do is to start raising funds to support that process. And that's what has led to the 3 cylinders we have today. By no means is this going to be the last. But we really encourage those who can afford it to please give way to those who cannot afford it, because our real target will be those who can't afford the cylinders, and also hopefully ultimately the concentrator as well, which is a lot more expensive than the cylinder. But at least the cylinder gives the initial alleviation of the an initial proof that it works, and then we can build on that in terms of the concentrator. So that's the mindset behind the draws. We hope also, in part of our scaling, to put it all this on different social media platforms. We hope to have these kinds of sessions quarterly, and if we even need to make it more frequent, we will, because this is not something that is a one-off. We see this as the beginning of a journey. And so even though we have 29 people on this webinar today, we're very grateful that we have a small group that we can talk and we can build, our plans on. We also hope to come up with, literature that kind of summarizes, what is being said, because I know on the group, Dr. Sota has had to repost things. So we're trying to provide that and mean support to Dr. Sota in such a way that it makes it easier for those who've not been part of the process to at least get the information, and then we can continue to build on that. Let me also thank Dr. Sota for the insights. I personally have learned, sometimes you start something, you don't even know you are even going to be the one that will learn more than even those that was the target. And a lot of what has been presented today, which has also been presented on the platform, has demonstrated that this sickle cell disease causes a lot of pain, and there's been so many different solutions put out there, and some of which have been withdrawn because of the side effects. But the beauty about the oxygen therapy is that it can help prevent further damage to organs. It is something you can do at home. Of course, bearing in mind all the risks, not put it near fire. And I think that's something we even need to continually reinforce in terms of the risks of, using oxygen. But other than that, it's basically, safe. And I know a mother, for a completely different reason, used oxygen. So I can relate to how oxygen is used, at home. And it's something that, quite frankly, from the younger adult or the child to the elderly, it's something that can be used at home. Now, other summary of what was said is that, and I think that came from one of the group members, that please, you all have a role. It's really, Dagoma just helped to ignite the fire, but please don't leave it to us. Let's all work together in our different, spheres of life to broadcast this, and also put in place policy for this. And that policy, one of the policies is that regarding airline travel. For domestic airlines, it may also be relevant because we do have flights that are 1 hour plus. And since your oxygen reduces within, I think Dr. Sota said, 10 minutes of flight, you may find you actually need it on domestic flights, but also international flights that you're sure are actually much longer in duration. And so one target for us in 2025 is to have facilitated the process of putting in place policy in Nigeria that will influence airlines to start putting in place, I think, is it continuous flow oxygen? I don't know the right terminology, but I'll get that from Dr. Sota.
Compressed medical
compressed, okay, compressed, oxygen on flights, and make it readily available to passengers. But I think beyond Nigerian airlines is also international airlines, both the UK and America, and make it that it's our right, it's the right of the passenger to have that oxygen on board. So it's on the policy end, that's something that's very, very important in terms of air travel. The second thing in terms of policy is even in American profession, in terms of usage of oxygen. I know at the last webinar that was done by the NL group, one of the doctors mentioned that the reason why it may not actually catch with the medical profession is because they're not going to make any revenue from it, but that's not the way it should be. I think we should also do advocacy with the medical community to advise their patients to use oxygen. So that also is the number 2 target, for us. And there's so many more things. There's so many more things to do. Even bringing down the cost of concentrators, bringing down the cost of cylinders, having places where people can, either refill for free. There's so many, I would say, branches of what we can do to really alleviate pain and make this a much easier disease to manage. And with this, to be quite honest, from what Dr. Sota has said, at least over 50%, if not more, of costs will be reduced. And if I probably more, because if you think about the inconvenience, not just of the medical cost, but actually staying in hospital and then having to recover before you now go back to work, the costs are probably, that's even something we need to do. What's the real cost that this saves? And this really is awesome. So thank you so much for being part of the journey. We've shared the WhatsApp group, and you can just scroll up if you need to get that. If you need it again, just text, we'll post it again. If you need to reach out to us on the WhatsApp platform, please do. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your testimonies. And thank you for your support. And may God bless us all and wish us all a very and good end of year 2024 and a happy 2025 new year. Thank you, Dr. Sota. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Fuego Caro. Thank you, Joseph Origo. This is a journey that has just started. It's a journey 7,300 years in the making. So it's really amazing that it's in our lifetimes that we're going to change this whole paradigm of sickle cell and bring a solution to this problem. So let's start the journey. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sota. Thank you, Mr. Okaru. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We hope to see you. We hope to see your contributions on the WhatsApp group. We hope to see you, speak, talk, ask questions, and let's do this together. Have an amazing night. Have an amazing day. God bless.
Bye-bye.